everyone, and welcome to episode 199 of the HomeTech podcast. I'm Seth Johnson, joined, as always, by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing this week?
I am doing great, Seth. How are you?
Doing great. I've got some ringing in my ears from listening to music all week.
Oh yeah, right. I'm sure. Beats Radio.
New
Beats Radio.
Beats Radio.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry about that. For the live listeners that we had, the pre music was millennial music from Beats Radio. So hope you enjoyed that.
I got to say, I'm excited, Seth. I've been seeing all of the reviews come across in the various tech blogs that I follow and newsletters, and I have been purposely either, not reading them or maybe just skimming them a little bit if the headline catches my eye and has something unique. But I am a clean slate here, so I've got questions for sure, and I know you finally got your hands on yours, and we're going to dive into that and talk about your impressions later in the show. So I definitely look forward to that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be fun. I've been reading a lot of the same reviews as well, and some of them are head scratchers, man. Some of them are really really strange. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, and you so easily pointed out before we started recording, this is episode 199. That means next week is 200.
That's right. It is hard to believe how close we are to episode 200. We're very excited about that. We've got a couple of special things planned. Seth, you and I have been talking about behind the scenes, and really want to encourage everybody to tune in. We think it's going to be a fun episode and really a great way to kick off the next 100. And so we really appreciate everybody tuning in, and we've just had so much fun producing these 199, almost 200 episodes now, and really so cliched, but I'll say it again. Time flies, right? And I can hardly believe how long it's been, and we've been at this for, I think 4 years, almost to the date. I failed to look this up before the show, but I think our very first episode may have actually gone out right around the 14th of February, which is we're sitting here recording this tonight.
February 12th. February 12th.
February 12th. Yeah, there you go. So pretty crazy. 4 years and almost 200 episodes. And, I think that it's a testament to the fact that we're in a good place, Seth, that I'm sitting here recording with you on the eve of Valentine's Day.
Wait, Jason, it's the 14th, brother. I hope your wife is not expecting Valentine's Day to be tomorrow. I don't think she is.
No, we're good. I've got my bases covered here, and we're all set. But a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun, and want to again thank everybody for tuning in, and specifically, as we like to do, Seth, on every episode, send a big thanks especially to those of you who have contributed to our Patreon page. If you're interested in learning how you can support our efforts here at the podcast, you can learn more about that over at HomeTech.fm/support. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/support, and that's where you can learn about our Patreon program, which is a way that you can contribute to our efforts here at the podcast for as little as $1 a month. We've got a whole bunch of people that have come on board and are generously contributing to that, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much. And if you're interested in learning more, one last time, that's HomeTech.fm/support.
Absolutely. And thanks to everybody who is joining in the live chat tonight. I think we have Greg over there. I see him most every week. So thanks, Greg, for showing up. I'm not sure if anybody else is in there, but we'll hopefully get some. Sometimes people trickle in a little bit later, and as they get the messages on Twitter or whatever, and they see that we're on there. But yeah, you can actually listen to the show live if you'd like. Every Wednesday, just about every Wednesday, we typically sit down and record somewhere between 7 and 7:30. We'll flip the switch and start talking and recording a show. So you can actually listen to us live, which is kind of cool. You can participate in the chat just like Greg is doing tonight, and shoot here some shooting messages about
pillaging his son's Valentine's
Is that what he's doing?
candy.
Okay, I was trying to read that. I was like, "What is he saying?" Oh, okay. So that's a great idea. I there's a bunch of candy.
Leave some for your son, Greg. Be nice.
Yeah. There's a bunch of candy inside. I was I'm gonna have a sweet tooth because I've got those little strawberry candies are my favorite. My wife, well, actually my daughter, got me a whole bag of them. So that should be fun for me to start working on some cavities.
There you go.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, let's jump in. Like we teased at the beginning there, we're gonna save our HomePod, sort of HomePod review towards the end, and look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. We've got a number of news stories that we're gonna jump in and talk about before we get to that. But before we jump into the news, want to plug another great picture of the week. Seth, this one came from The Hub, which is our private Slack channel that you can become a member of if you become a supporter of the podcast. And this comes from James or Homeplay, as he goes by there. And James runs an integration firm over in the UK, and they do some very high quality work. And he sent over a really beautiful picture of a real low profile flat panel TV mounted to the wall. And this Seth is like what most people think their TV is going to look like when they buy a low profile bracket and mount it to the wall, right? And then they come to find out that there's a little more to it when it comes to cable management and the power cords and everything else that goes into that. And this thing is just gorgeously mounted right up against the wall, and just a really nice shot. And I think cool to see what people are out there doing and executing on from an installation standpoint, be it a do-it-yourself or a professional install. I always love seeing pictures like this. So thank you, James, for sending that in. We appreciate it, and we'll include a link to that if you're interested in taking a look over at HomeTech.fm/199.
Yep. That was always the trick, right? You'd get the client and they would say, yeah, I'd like to have this mounted as close to the ceiling as possible. And you would as close to the ceiling and close to the wall as possible. And you'd always have to figure out, like, how is this going to work? And they're like, oh, well, I bought the slim mount too. It's like, yeah, but 1 + 1 is still 2, and you have to recess this back into the wall somehow. We have to,
right.
There's a lot that goes into that, a lot more than it looks initially. So what a great install shot, I thought. And that yard, man, look at that yard.
Yeah, gorgeous.
My grass looks just like that, I promise. It's under all the weeds and everything. But.
Right, yeah. Exactly. All right, cool. Let's jump in, Seth. We've got a handful of stories here on video streaming, and this is a big topic we're continually talking about, and particularly relevant for me as I continue my slow and steady march towards cutting the cord. We received the Tableau that I mentioned last week from a friend and listener of the show, Wynn Walker, sent that over to me, and I have admittedly yet to really do anything with it. I've still got to go buy an antenna, and so I'm sort of starting to shop around there, and haven't really done a lot of research, but want to figure out what my options are and make a good choice on that. But we'll get the Tableau set up here, and that'll take care of our OTA DVR needs. And in the meantime, we've been sort of tinkering with different apps, and Hulu is one of the main ones we've been using, and just sort of, playing around with that. And so we've got a few of these stories we wanted to touch on. Actually, first one, before we get into particular apps, Seth, is a story that you found, or a website, I should say, you found called killthecablebill.com. And this is a pretty cool resource, I think. It's got some great sort of side-by-side reviews of all the different streaming hardware that's out there, and I think does a pretty good job of breaking these down and comparing the options, and was a great resource, Seth, that you found that we wanted to share with the audience. Yeah,
I mean, you were talking about this earlier about how many options you have to go into this, and Tableau is definitely one of them. I ran across this early in the week, and I thought, hey, this may be a pretty good resource for Jason, but also for anybody else who wants to check this out. Oddly enough, Tableau not listed on here. I think they should probably list it because it's a pretty compelling offering compared to the other things they have on here. But it goes into like Chromecast, Amazon, some devices I really haven't heard of, like Air TV, which I guess is an EchoStar product that'll do OTA and like online TV kind of merged together. So those are it's just got a bunch of devices on here. If you're getting into this, if you're getting into the over the top and you want to cut the cable, this is a pretty, I would say, a pretty decent resource to kind of take a look at and kind of weigh your options on what hardware you might need to buy. I say might because half the TVs these days actually have it built in, right? They'll have the Hulu app, they'll have Netflix app built into it. Sometimes you don't even need these devices, but if you are looking for some hardware to maybe add on, get a little bit better performance out of, take a look at some of the options here because there's not any bad options. It doesn't look like you definitely have actually this Nexus player that they have on here. It says May 2016, the Nexus player seems to be out of stock everywhere. Yeah, it's out of stock because they discontinued it. I actually have one of those. And while a good box, I'd say probably the new NVIDIA replaces it somehow. Like the NVIDIA, I forget the name of it, but it's a fancy streaming box as well. But this is a pretty good resource to kind of like start off and just kind of take a look at hardware. Where do you go with the hardware and basically what you may need to get to put into your house to start with.
Right.
I thought it was a pretty good article.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of stuff on here. So not only the set-top boxes and sort of usual suspects that you would think of, but it looks like some different tuners as well. And, of course, they get into smart TVs and different gaming devices. And so pretty comprehensive roundup and a site worth checking out. I know that I will be I've bookmarked this, and I'll be sort of coming back to take a quick peek at it. But moving on from there, a couple of stories related to Hulu. I mentioned we have been dabbling with that one, and saw these come across, and one just don't have a ton to say about this, but it really jumped out at me, Seth. I had no idea that Hulu was losing the kind of money that they are. This report says Hulu lost $920 million. So, that's almost $1 billion that they lost in 2017, with more losses to come. This, according to a story on Fierce Cable, says Hulu's losses spiked 73% to $920 million as the joint venture spent aggressively on original content and launched a virtual MVPD service. That, of course, is the Hulu Live TV service that they're referring to there. And so pretty staggering amounts of money that they're losing there. But I guess that's how these things work. And I don't think that it's a... that, I don't read this story and think, oh, Hulu's going to go away or go under. They're backed by, it's a very large venture. But yeah, just crazy. I was really surprised to see that.
Yeah, it looks like, you were saying that they spent a lot of money on original content. Everybody who has an online presence seems to be getting into that game. I'm seeing that there's some Apple is going to release a documentary on their platform, I think as early as next week, I want to say. Maybe it's this week. I just kind of saw that fly by on the newsfeed the other day.
Yep.
But this is interesting because Hulu is like you said, backed by large companies like Comcast, 21st Century Fox, the Walt Disney Company. Those are pretty big content providers themselves. So it's staggering to I don't want to say that all of it is because their app is horrible and they should redo it, but maybe like 20 or 30% of this loss could be attributed to that horrible...
To the garbage app.
Yeah. That would be my guess. As a business analyst, I think that would be my guess.
You should write him a letter.
An angry note to the editor.
Yeah, they're obviously going after the long play. If they're sinking that kind of money into an unprofitable venture right now, they clearly see a bigger vision, and they're just trying to, it's sort of a land grab right now. So anyways, interesting. Not a whole lot more to say about that one. On the more technical side, I think a fairly nice feature for their new live TV service is 60 frames per second. So I actually hadn't realized this until I started digging into the different live services, but they to date have only been doing streaming on Hulu Live at 30 frames per second, I believe is what they were doing. Anyways, they weren't doing 60 in any event. And they had a post on their Reddit page says, you've asked, you've patiently waited, and today is the day we begin rolling out 60 frames per second on live TV. They go on to say this was one of the most requested features by their viewers, and it does look like it is a kind of a phased rollout. So certain channels and I believe certain areas and so this will be coming in phases, but good news for Hulu Live customers.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to get better video quality out of these systems. So I'm all for that. It looks like, from what I'm reading here, it seems to be that this is for live TV, not for the recorded stuff that they have, or maybe the recorded stuff is already doing 60 frames per second. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the recording stuff is doing, but you are correct. This story is specific to the live service.
Well, good for them. I think this is great. It's like I said, it's always good to get better things for free, right? Well, not for free, because evidently it's going to cost them an additional. Did you see that story? Like, I don't know if you skipped over it, but they're expecting more $1.7 billion more next year in losses. Like, I read that as we were transitioning. I'm just like, holy cow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Or this year,
nuts.
2018. Wow. So better app, maybe more frames per second. And I think they're going to get some more customers. Just me.
Yeah. It's all going to go to the content, Seth. You're stuck with the app. That's all you get.
Right. Oh, well. Hulu experience. But
well, if anything will push them to improve that user experience, it's going to be increased competition, which brings us to our next story regarding YouTube TV. And it looks like they're adding some more channels, so Turner channels in particular. So they've had CNN already, which is a Turner channel, but they'll now also have TBS and TNT, which, I don't personally watch those channels a lot. I do know that those channels here in the States carry a lot of the NBA, so professional basketball. So good news for sports fans, for basketball fans. That'll be a nice feature. And what? Also, now that I think about it, is I believe a lot of the Major League Baseball playoffs and even regular season air on those channels. So good deal for sport fans. It does come with a $5 price hike. So from $35 to $40 a month is what this service is going for now.
Yep. And I think I was saying this last week, is that I saw a story today, and I don't think we have it in our show notes, but I did see a story that the average cable bill is $100. And I guess that kind of makes sense, but the average price for a streaming service like this is $40. And that's a big drop, $60 a month. And that's real money that people can save just by switching and watching probably fewer channels, but in my case, who cares, right? Like, fewer channels,
right? But
the channels that I actually want to watch. So this is clearly the way where the puck has been going, and we have stories. It seems like every couple of quarters we have another slew of stories about how many people have dropped off the subscription over at the local Comcast or corded cable provider company. And I think we're just going to keep seeing that. And these numbers over at YouTube and Hulu start to pick up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Last story here we wanted to touch on regarding streaming. And this one, Seth, sort of hit home with me. I've been noticing, I'll say anecdotally, that even in the little bit of sort of dipping my toes into the cord cutting water and just starting to really wean myself off of the DirecTV box, I've noticed very quickly, and it doesn't come as a surprise to me, but it's striking home more than before, just how much you have to remember, which app has which show. You're switching between apps quite a bit to get between shows, and it's like when I'm trying to tee up a show for the kids, it's like, was that episode of Bubble Guppies on Amazon Prime, or was that on Hulu or whatever, right? And so you're trying to remember, and the Apple TV, the TV app, as they call it, is a solution that I'm sure listeners to the show are familiar with, and is really aiming at trying to solve that problem. And I think it's only just the beginning. I don't have a lot of experience with the implementation of it, but I think it is a good idea, and it's the right direction to have that sort of universal search type of functionality on the Apple TV. And I know other devices have that. I think Roku might already have that, and TiVo, I think, has a certain implementation of it, but it does look like Apple TV is continuing to slowly build that out. They've now got a news section is the headline this week. So in and of itself, not a huge story, but steady progress on that front. They're going to be sort of aggregating different news sources within the TV app. So if you want to get caught up on the news, you don't have to bounce between different apps on your Apple TV. You just hop into that one place and it's all right there. So a nice feature. Again, I think it's really just the beginning for this type of universal search implementation. But wanted to mention it because, like I said, it has definitely hit home for me very quickly as I've started to play around with apps more, how big of a pain it can be to jump between them. Yeah.
I mean, when we looked back at Apple introducing this TV app feature, everybody was kind of like sit back and going, okay, that's interesting. But I really do think that this kind of aggregation and search is definitely the future interface of what our TVs are going to look like. Like it really felt that Apple had a decent vision on that, and I think other people have taken up that idea or have already kind of in parallel had that idea as well. And of course, my favorite product to kind of like hit on, I guess, is this Cavo, right? Cavo kind of has that same idea, like to have a unified interface, a unified search for you to go in and basically search for a TV show or something that you want to watch, like you were saying. The bubble guppy. This is out of my age range and that I'm having to deal with right now. So bubble guppies, is that what it is?
Oh, just you wait.
All right. Well, I'm sure it'll be something. Yeah.
Yeah. Bubble guppies is one of the big ones. There's a handful of them, but yeah, the Cavo, like you mentioned, is out this week. It's a box that we've talked about before. It's a little bit hard to explain, I would say, on a podcast, but we can do our best here if you're not, in case listeners aren't familiar. It is it's a set-top box that has a whole bunch of HDMI inputs on the back, and I think just a single, maybe two HDMI outputs. I can't remember. But anyways, it's basically a switcher, HDMI switcher from a hardware perspective, but it's got a lot of smarts built into it, and it's basically built. The vision for this thing is that it takes the different set-top boxes you have, like maybe an Apple TV and a Roku and a cable box and whatever else you have, and you hook them all into this thing, and then it's got a lot of intelligence built in where it can detect what devices are hooked up, and it knows how to control them, and it comes with a handheld remote. So it's sort of like a HDMI switcher / really intelligent universal remote, all built into one is probably the simplest way to describe it.
Yep. Or as I described it in our Slack channel today, the Rube Goldberg for your machine for your TV.
That's another way to describe it. I know we've had several conversations here on the show, Seth, about sort of the merit of the idea behind this thing, and does it have legs? I think it's a really interesting concept personally. Anyways, the headlines are out this week. It is out in the hands of the tech press, and it is being reviewed, and so we'll include a couple of links to different reviews from The Verge as well as CNET. And the general consensus seems to be it's a good vision. The Verge said after a lengthy development cycle, new round of funding, blah, 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 the units go on sale today, $399, I should mention. And then after using a review unit for several days, it's clear that Cavo has the most interesting idea about the future of remote controls anyone has had in years. It is also clear that it's very complicated and an expensive idea that isn't quite ready yet. So, that seems to be the overall theme of that review. They certainly had a number of very good things to say about it, but they were just coming down on the side that it was still a little bit complicated. And the biggest thing, Seth, that I know you and I were talking about before we started recording tonight is no HDR support, which is a bummer for anybody who's got a HDR set up and was interested in using this thing. That is definitely that's a bummer.
Not only HDR, but also Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. And for this type of product, I think that they were kind of aiming for that crowd that would be, buying new TVs and have the latest gadgets, right? So I think it's a big miss on their part to not be able to support this newer, I guess it's a newer version of HDMI that they had built into the HDMI switcher. Turns out HDMI is hard.
Yeah, you don't say.
I think we've been talking about that for a few years, right?
Yeah, it is disappointing, and it sounds like it's a hardware limitation to me. I think it's a chipset limitation, so it's not necessarily something they're going to be able to fix with a firmware update. It'll require a new version of the hardware, as I'm understanding it.
Yeah, a lot of people have been dinging it for the price for some reason. That $400 is a bad price for this. I think actually the price is actually really good to me, considering that it has the HDMI switcher built in. It has a universal remote that actually is built in, and an on-screen display built into it, like that you can go navigate and everything. And I'm used to selling HDMI over IP extenders that cost more than that for a single device. Like, and you need one at each TV and each source. So think about that. Like that can add up pretty quickly. Price is relative, and I don't think that this is a bad price for what you get in the box at all. If anything, I think it's kind of low. Like I really do.
Yeah.
They could have sold this for 100 or 200 more, and gotten away with it, I suppose. But $400 for a decent universal remote, given, I mean, some of the things that are really impressive here, that they're trying to solve with this, like the HDMI switching and trying to remember what input you're going to and everything. That's a really noble effort. Some of the things that I think that it's going to fall flat on its face is one, keeping up with hardware as fast as hardware moves in the industry that we're in. I think that's one of them, but also keeping up with software updates from some of these devices. I remember that they were at the beginning when this device was announced, they were doing some kind of strange video analytics or reading the video screen and looking for buttons so their remote could go to those buttons. And it just seemed like the strangest thing. I don't know if they implemented that or they're just doing simple up, down, left, right controls. But if they're trying to do something special with control on top of everything else and trying to go, read what's coming off the Apple TV HDMI cable, read the video pixels and figure out, what each individual label says, as they were talking about in that initial interview with Walt Mossberg, I think, that's going to be tough. Right. And that's one of those parts of the machine, the Rube Goldberg machine, that could break.
Without a doubt.
And I don't like to see that.
Yeah, it's an ambitious product for sure. I don't think anybody would debate that with you, and I hope that they find success with it. I agree with you. I don't think the price point is outrageous or unreasonable at all. I also understand that pricing, like you said, is all relative, and that $300-$400. This was $400 is not a small chunk of change, right? That's an appreciable amount of money, but it's all about the market that they're targeting, and for their target market, enthusiasts who are into this sort of thing, that doesn't strike me as any issue. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see how it does, and we'll report back as we hear more. But let's move on here. We've got one more quick story we want to touch on before, Seth. We want to get into your thoughts on the HomePod, and looking forward to that. This is an interesting application, and I think one of the things that I really enjoy about following the smart home space is when I see technology, the connected home technology, being used for new, sort of innovative or maybe very practical applications, and this definitely falls under that category. It is a CE Pro story reporting from ISE, where they uncovered a system from Real KNX, a smart senior living system, and it integrates with Google Home. So it basically is, as described in the article by Julie, I believe, did the reporting here over at CE Pro, is the modern day PERS system, right? The personal emergency response system. So, you've all seen the commercials, I've fallen, help me, I've fallen and I can't get up commercials, right? And this is the sort of the 21st century version of that. And pretty interesting. I think it's a useful application. And I know that with the aging baby boomer generation that a lot more people in sort of our age bracket and people who are savvy and comfortable with home technology are having to start thinking about aging parents and what can be done to make that situation easier. And I think this is a kind of a cool example of where technology can help with that.
Yeah. The aging in place. I kind of want to loop her back around, but this is the voice control system. Like, this is a great example of a product that can come from having a voice assistant that doesn't have to be like overly complicated. Like, help, I've fallen, I can't get up. And also, tell me the news, set a timer. That stuff is great for having in your house. Like that's what these systems should be doing. And this is a great product for that. Aging in place, I as an entire industry in and of itself, I don't really know where to put. We've talked about this like on the show a number of times, or talked about it, putting it on the show a number of times, is this idea of the aging in place industry. And I've looked into it in the past, and it's like you get so far, and then you're at the point where, like, yeah, but the people just don't want this stuff in their house. This could be like a Trojan horse, right? To get a voice assistant into the house, to maybe add on a couple of more pieces of technology that kind of whatever kind of way attach onto that voice control system, to do the sensory things that an aging in place system would need to do. This is a really brilliant idea, and kind of based around a very inexpensive $39 Google Home device. Like this could be pretty big for them. So I as much as I've kind of poo-pooed on the aging in place industry in the past, like, this really seems like it could have some legs and some potential, like, in interest in the senior market.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think as an addressable market, it does have its challenges for companies who are looking to come out with products or solutions aimed at it and build a business maybe exclusively around that. But this is the kind of thing I look at, and I think, I personally, Seth, have no idea what's involved with a real KNX system, and if that's a very high end sort of big footprint installation, it may be. But I think the point I'm driving at is that when we get to a place where affordable and simple technology can be used by everyday people like you and me to go into maybe an aging parent's home and use that to keep a closer eye on a loved one, or just have a little bit more peace of mind, or something like that, and it doesn't cost you thousands of dollars to do it, that is pretty cool, right? And I think that it's something we're going to continue to see more of, a little bit more about the implementation of this thing. And so, basically you just say, okay, Google, help, and then it says the system will notify anyone on the user's caregiver list of the alert. Caregivers can then respond by voice or text, and those messages are instantly relayed via text-to-speech through the loved one's Google Home device. So it's basically like alerting loved ones, and then at that point, of course, you're going to have to get in communication and call for help if you need to, or what have you. But like I said, a fairly simple implementation, but strikes me as very useful, and I personally love seeing smart home technology being applied to these sort of use cases.
Yep, and this is definitely one that, like you said, has its challenges, and I really do like, maybe not this implementation of this. Who knows? I don't know. Like you said, I don't know very much about the real KNX system. That's predominantly a European system, but just the idea, I guess, is kind of where I'm going to that. Like, using a voice control assistant to do this is a pretty good idea. And I think it actually has some legs and could actually get a little bit further down the road than what we were trying to do in the past, was install like a dedicated device or security system that was monitored,
sure,
to check for door sensors and that kind of thing, and also have the voice tie in to a monitored security company as well. So I think this could have a little bit more going for it than the traditional aging in place system. So
right.
Hopefully, like you said, we'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully we'll see something more in this space in the future.
Yep. All right, Seth. Well, time for the big proverbial drum roll here. I know we've been waiting for weeks on pins and needles to hear your HomePod report, and so I'm just going to let you lead out with overall. I see Seth, again, this doesn't really translate to audio, but getting stretched out like a boxer, ready to enter the ring. Here we go. It's going to be a throwdown.
Yeah, I hope you cleared your schedule. Yeah, I got to get my calisthenics out of the way here.
So what do you think? I mean, just overall impressions, and don't empty the bag here on this first one. We'll pick it apart a little bit, but what's the high level view of your initial impressions of it?
Man, I hate to put let's see, high level view. It's a nice product, a very decent small speaker. But outside of that, I think it falls flat on its face, unfortunately. There have been a lot of reviews, like seriously on the sound front. There have been a lot of reviews that I would have thought that angels themselves would have come from the heavens and sung the sweet nectar of life into my ears by the way these Apple-centric reviewers, and even people like there were Reddit posts from audiophiles who, and I'm throwing quotes up here, who said that this sounds better than their $1,000 speakers, B&O speakers, and this. And I'm sorry, if your B&O speaker isn't sounding better than this HomePod, you need a new B&O speaker, because this thing is nowhere near that. And I'm let me just put a disclaimer on this. Audio is very subjective. I am not an audiophile, but I do listen to music on occasion. I have some of like a background in music education and a background in recording technologies. So I kind of know a lot about music that most people don't. And at the same time, I don't care. Like, something can subjectively sound good to me and subjectively sound bad to you. Right? Like,
of course.
I think we have to start with that disclaimer on this. Is like, audio is a very subjective thing. And the Apple HomePod, as it is, has been sold to us as a brilliant piece of technology that is one of the best speakers of its type. And I will say that they probably have something to that, but it might not be there yet. Like, I don't know if you've seen them. The size isn't very big. Like, do you remember the old? My parents used to have these, like the big Folgers coffee cans. Yeah. That as a kid. Okay, so like now everybody uses those Keurigs, right? So you don't see those anymore. But the big coffee cans, this HomePod could probably fit inside of one of those, and you might even get the lid on top. So it's about that big.
Yeah, I pictured it a little bit bigger. I thought you were going to say it was about the size of the coffee can, but you're saying that it is about a size that could fit inside of there.
I think you could get it in there. A coffee can challenge. I'd have to go spend $3 on a coffee can, right?
You mean you don't have one? I thought you'd have one ready.
It's not going to fit in the Keurig. I can tell you that.
Yeah, it's. I can tell you, watching from afar and seeing the headlines come across this week, seemed pretty divided. Like I said, I made a conscious effort not to dive into too many of these and spend a lot of time reading them. But it seemed fairly split down the middle. Like, there were a lot that just from the headline alone seemed very bullish on the sound quality and touting it as an excellent speaker. And then others that were generally pretty down on it and said, it's a good speaker, but for the money, it, doesn't compare to Google Home Max or a Play 5 or, what have you. So,
well, that's where things got weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, because the Google Home Max looks like it should be good, but then I was hearing reviews of the Google Home Max that it didn't sound better than a Sonos Play 1 or something. So
it's so, audio, like you said, is so subjective, and it's one of the things that I even having worked in the industry and have before and being out in the field and being exposed to a lot of really great speakers, like, I get it. I totally get it. And there is something about a very high-end, hi-fi pair of speakers that you can tell when you're listening to them. But like, if you take that very high end of the market away and you go down to sort of like everything else, it does become pretty subjective. Now, I would certainly not sit here and say that a $1,000 pair of speakers or an $800 pair of speakers doesn't sound better, generally speaking, than a $100 countertop all in one speaker, right? Clearly there is a difference, but when you start comparing things that are in a similar form factor or a similar sort of price class and quality of materials and build out, it becomes difficult to tell the difference, in my opinion. And I've never been one who has considered myself to have a good ear or a discerning ear to be able to really pick up on those nuances. And so for me, when it comes to audio, I'm sort of a price, bang for your buck kind of guy.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to fall in the bang for the buck category, you've got to look at some of the speakers that exist in the same market, right? So we're talking about maybe the Amazon Echo, which no, it's horrible. Like, we all know that the audio is bad on that.
It is. It's serviceable though, right? Like right. That's the interesting thing is like we have an Echo in our kitchen and we use it all the time for music. And do I think it sounds great? Hell no. Like, it doesn't. It's not a great speaker. But do I listen to it and go, oh my gosh, I just can't stand this thing, it's awful? No, I don't do that either. Like, I turn it on and I have music in the kitchen and it usually plays at a low volume and that's fine. All good. Like that's all I need. So I think there are a lot of people out there like me, and it makes that $350 price point for, either a HomePod or a Google Home Max or a pair of Sonos Ones or whatever. That is a substantial investment.
All right. And just to be clear, the Google Home Max is much more expensive than, I think it's $399 or $499. Maybe,
but it's still in that like sub 500.
I think it is. And the Play 5 I think is up there, like at $499 or $599 for the Sonos version.
Right.
The Big Daddy Sonos. That actually is what I thought this was going to sound like, and it sounds nothing like that. So step it back to the Play 3. I have two of those in my house. A Play 3 can potentially blow the HomePod out of the water. Two Play 3s, hands down, no contest. A single Play 1 or the Sonos One, which I think is the same product, but it has the voice assistant built on top of it, so it'll have Google Assistant one day, maybe, and it'll also it has right now the Amazon Echo platform built onto it, and Sonos has kind of gone head to head with Apple in this situation where they said, well, you can buy two of these for the same price. So you get 2 for 1 is what their little marketing was saying. And I'd say that is probably the better deal. Like, the Play 1 sounds very similar. I'd say a well-placed Play 1 sounds about the same as a HomePod.
Wow. So I want to be precise here. So you're saying the Play One, because it's confusing because Sonos has the Play One and then the Sonos One, which is the newer. I think they're
the same product. Like, I don't think.
Oh, are they? Okay.
I mean, it's the same size product. One just has the voice assistant and the other was just the speaker. But I have two Play Ones. So let me just step that back. I have two Play Ones. They're integrated with the Amazon Echoes we have in the house. So I have kind of the same integrations that the Sonos One has. So confusing. But I could place the Play 1 in a good spot in the correct room, and it would sound as good, if not just about the same as the Apple HomePod. I'd say the Apple HomePod probably has 1 1.25 sound that Play 1 has. But you can put things closer to the corners in a room. They sound different. You put them down on the floor. They sound different. You can kind of play around with the Play 1. Now, I'm saying this because you can actually tune the Play 1 to the room by kind of waving your hand around in the air while running the app, and this Play 1 starts spewing out some weird little sounds. That will actually make the Play 1 sound better, and I think, kind of, again, subjective, I think that you can get pretty close to what Apple has done here automatically. Now, I will give Apple plenty of credit for what they've done with the setup. Like, setting up a Sonos system, so many clicks, so many things that you have to go in and tap on, set up. Oh, you didn't do this yet. Mm-hmm. It'll sound better if you do the TruePlay stuff. Apple setting this thing up, it booted up a little card popped up on my phone saying, "Hey, do you want to install this this HomePod?" Sure. Pick the room, hit setup, go. A couple of more questions, and it transferred the Wi-Fi settings over and everything. I didn't have to do anything, and at that point, I'm talking to it and operating it through Siri. The install was great. Hands down the fastest, and I put in my notes, so fast I didn't know it happened. Like, it was done, and I'm sitting there staring at it like, yeah, like, okay, well, I guess I can say, Siri, do something for me here. But there's a nice little, at the end, there's a nice little Siri walkthrough where she's like, you can tell me to do this, or you why don't you try it? And you say, kind of follow the prompts or whatever. So past that and sounding like a decent small speaker, so it's got like a 4-inch woofer in it, right, Jason?
Yep.
Physics, you're limited to physics at that point. It's got like a little nice little punchy bass. I would say the bass is there. Like, you do notice the bass from time to time. It's there. It can be punchy. They've kind of like pumped it up on the lower end bass. So like if you're listening to like hip hop songs or something like that, you really notice like they're trying to do something with the bass there. But it does roll off because it's a 4-inch speaker. Like you can only fight physics for so long, right? If there was a HomePod, like, I don't know how much this thing would weigh, but if there was like a HomePod 8-inch HomePod, like, it would be awesome. I'm thinking like it would probably weigh as much as those. Do you ever pick up those Sunfire subwoofers back in the day? The tiny. Oh yeah. Like I envision that as a full range speaker. That would be amazing.
Definitely would not fit in a coffee can though.
No, would not. Well, no, it would. I mean, those are small for what they were. They were like 8-inch cubed, right? So I think Apple would have to probably make one that's about 12 inches around, but they could do the same fancy audio adjustments. They could have tweeters in there. I think they have 7 tweeters in this thing, and they all fire in different directions. That would be awesome. But I think also 2 of these paired together, which is the missing feature, right, as a stereo pair, would actually be pretty good. Because as things get like louder, the Apple HomePod does a very, very good job of I don't think I've turned it up over 50% because it gets too loud. Like, it's just uncomfortably loud. Like, you don't even want to be in the same room loud, and it's not distorting. Like, they've done a very good job of kind of rolling the bass down, rolling the highs. They can just do whatever because it's 7 tweeters, but like, they've done a good job of managing the distortion on very, very loud playback. And I think they have that going for them. So once you start getting the ability to bridge these 2 things together or make music throughout the home, I think that you'll get a better experience. At least I'm hoping you'll get a better experience out of the audio with the HomePod. And hopefully, like I'm saying, they will build bigger ones and smaller ones with different features. That would be awesome, because right now it sounds like a really good small speaker, but it's not going to compete on sound alone. Like, you're going to have to do more with this, because it's just not there.
And have you tried to do anything with it in terms of like where is this product sitting in terms of HomeKit and home control? Have you done anything with that? Dug into it? Looked at it in the app? I mean, what the details were fairly sparse on that, I felt like during the release. So what's your experience there been like?
So it sets up like Siri. So you can yell at Siri to do things like turn on lights and fans and that kind of things if you have HomeKit devices. It just works like you had your phone laying on the desk and you yelled at your phone. Except it's got a better speaker than it's in the phone.
Makes sense.
There are problems with that, and here's where the HomePod got unplugged in my house. I left it inside, and my wife likes to use her Siri on her watch. Guess what? This product was designed, this is the famous thing that we always go back to. This product was designed for one person living alone in a San Francisco apartment.
Yep.
Honestly, this would be perfect for that person, because it would fill up the entire apartment with audio that sounded decent. I will give it that. It would work great for them to send messages and talk to Siri alone, but it doesn't work with 2 people in the house. Falls flat on its face. She's trying to talk to her watch. My HomePod, which is tied to my account, is picking up and talking. also in with just me sitting there, I had my kind of hand up on the back of the couch and was kind of leaning over yelling at it, and my watch picked up the command and was like, sorry, I can't do any of that. Like, so
Right.
I think there's I mean, we all know that Siri kind of gets some bad rap there, but I think there is a ton of work that they need to do to make this work as expected. Like, it doesn't even come close to how you would expect Siri to work on your phone. Like, you can even set up multiple timers. That's got to be the biggest ding on this product, period. You can't say, like with the Amazon, if you're in the kitchen, you can say, set a potato timer for 30 minutes, set the meat timer for an hour and a half, or, like you can set up multiple timers.
Right.
And yes, I cook you sous vide, man. You got to cook meat for a very long time, right? So like that's definitely.
You're a sous vide guy, huh?
Yeah. So like,
all right.
You can't do that. You can only set one timer up, and there's all these workarounds that the Apple people are like, no, just make multiple timers work with Siri. How hard can it be? Seriously, guys.
Yeah.
I will say that Siri is extremely it's extremely responsive. Like, it is, if you've ever, said, yo Siri, something, like, and your phone, and you just kind of sat there and didn't even light up. Like, that doesn't happen with this device. I have hit, false positives with this device. Or what is it? False positives.
False positives.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It happened to us when we were setting up, and I don't even think we said Siri. Maybe we did. I don't know. Like, it will go off, or it will listen a lot better than the phones, the watches, and that kind of thing. So I would say that that's great. But a lot of this stuff that I'm complaining about can be solved with software over time. But right now, $349 bang for the buck guy. No. Stronghold. Do not buy.
Stronghold. Okay. That's what I was going to say. I mean, what's the verdict here? I know when you purchased this, you were sort of debating, is this something that I'm basically looking at this as a trial, right? And I have a certain amount of time to potentially take it back or return it. What's your verdict right now? Are you leaning towards a keep, or you're going to part ways?
As it sits right now, it's going back. I think in the future, if they do a better job of integrating, one, they've got to make Siri work like Siri does on the phone. They've got to do multiple timers. They've got to do more. Like, you can't even, if I'm holding my phone or talking to my watch and say, play this song on my HomePod, it won't even do that. That's insane.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, like, they have got a long way to go with Siri to have this product, and to have a product that you can only control by Siri. It's a big no. So I think, like, software has a very, 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 very long way to go with this. I'm kind of even under the opinion, like, they should have waited. Like, they should have waited longer before they even announced or tried to ship this, because it's not ready to compete with the products that already exist in the market right now. That, yeah, they may sound a little bit worse, but that's not what they're trying to do with this long term. Like, everybody knows that. And for $349, man, that is a tough thing to do. I will say, again, disclaimer at the end here, this may work for you. It may work for your family. If you have an extra $349 and 14 days to try it out, I would say go for it. You might be a little more impressed than I was. But I should be like the key demographic for this product, and I'm going to push it off to the side. And I might come back to it later, because if the software gets better, the integrations have got to get better with Siri. I mean, that's something that we're all hoping to see, but we haven't seen that in the entire time. Like, Apple has put more effort into making better speakers than they have into making Siri integrate. And we've got to see more Siri integrations. If that comes back, I would consider going to get one for probably my desk here at the office, like just in my garage, just setting it off to the side and letting it do its thing. I would probably do that. Yes. But right now, this product is not ready to buy.
It's going back.
It's going back.
Well, you heard it here first. Great review. I think you made some good points, and they're all reasoned, and other than the audio, which is inherently subjective. I think that you've made some great points and some things for people to consider if they're going out and potentially evaluating one of these. Like you said, you've got the 14-day trial program there, right? So if you're willing to go to the effort and you've got some extra cash sitting around and you want to give it a try, let us know. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from anybody, frankly, who has purchased a HomePod or seen one in action, and we want to know what your experience has been like with it. So, head on over to the website, HomeTech.fm/feedback. Once again, that's HomeTech.fm/feedback, or hop on over to Twitter at HomeTech Podcast. We would love to hear from you there and hear what your experiences with the HomePod have been like.
Yep. One more quick note that I had here. And so I pulled this thing out of the box. The packaging, people talk about the packaging. The packaging was okay. Yeah, it was nice. It's a little heavier than you think. So you pick it up and the cord comes out with it, Jason. And I look at it and the cord is attached to the product. And I'm going,
oh, is it really?
Yes, it is. So I'm like, first thing I wrote down, attached cord. This is disgusting. And I'm like, how can they do this? How can they make this? So I was watching the iFixit teardown, and or there was actually one that was posted in the hub that some guy used an axe to tear it down, which I thought was clever.
I saw that.
Yeah, but the cable actually, if you really pull on it, the cable will actually pop out of that. So you could probably drill maybe like a 3/8 inch hole if you wanted to like put it up on a cabinet and not see the cables. I'm just thinking from like a custom integration point of view. Like you could actually sneak a cable without drilling a massive hole through the top of a cabinet. It would fit through. You can disconnect it if you want to get overly aggressive with it and just pull it off the back.
if you're really determined.
Yes. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm sure somebody would have figured out if it was attached how to detach it and do that. But
right.
One of the very first things that when it comes out of the box and the cable is dangling off the end of it, I'm just like, oh, huge miss. But
yeah,
kind of redeemed itself in watching some of the teardown videos.
Got it. Well, glad you pointed that out. All right, Seth. Well, I think I speak for the listeners when I say thank you for going out there and kicking the tires on it, and it's been fun to learn what your experiences have been like. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Want to again thank everybody so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. If you're interested in learning how you can support our efforts here at the HomeTech Podcast to bring you more episodes just like this one, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support. One last time, that is HomeTech.fm/support, and we really, really appreciate you tuning in.
Sounds great, Jason. I will talk to you next week on episode 200.
All right. I look forward to it. Take care, Seth.